Hi, this is Becky Nunn of Nunn Design, and I'm a guest designer for Beadaholique. And today I'm going to be showing you a fun project of what you can do with odd-shaped bindings that you might already have in your own stash, including buttons with shanks on the back, or maybe just pieces that are too big to fit in any of the bezels that you might have. This is the project that we'll be making with some vintage finds of these buttons that I had in my own personal stash. And so what you'll be needing for this are your personal stash. You'll be needing some ear wires, some mini links, some crystals, and some crystal clay. And inside of the crystal clay comes this great little handy beeswax toothpick. The first step is going to be taking equal size balls of the crystal clay. And in the package, you'll want to read the manufacturer's instructions. You want to put your gloves on during this mixing process. So once you have two equal size balls, you're just going to go ahead and knead them together until they are no longer marbled. And depending on how many times you've used your gloves, I've used these a couple times, it starts getting stickier and stickier and might be a little bit challenging. But just bear with it, it doesn't last very long. You're just going to go ahead and mix the clay until it's no longer marbled. Sometimes if my clay is super hard, like maybe I didn't wrap it up as well as I should have, because these all come in little saran wrap containers, and then they have a little sticky thing to keep them nice and moist inside of their airtight containers. But if you didn't do it, what you can do is put it into a little Ziploc and put it into some warm running water, and that will make it soft again, so you don't have to work your fingers out too much kneading them together. So this is what it should look like when it's all mixed and it's no longer marbled. Once you have your clay mixed, you want to do a little bit of a guesstimating. I'm guesstimating that I need a ball about that size to go inside of my mini link. I was totally wrong, so I can go ahead and pinch off even a smaller size ball. Sometimes, you know, it just really takes time to get a gauge of how much clay you'll need. So it's best to always undermix your clay, and then you can always add more to it. But if you want to watch a great video on how to use your excess clay, you can do that on Beadaholique as well. So I've just taken a small bit of it and I've pinched it off and pressed it inside of the bezel. And sometimes I can get clay on these outside edges in this kind of a grooved area. It looks neat, but sometimes it's not so great with crystal clay getting stuck inside of there. So I always have a handy wet wipe right beside where I'm working so that I can wipe away that excess clay if I get any on my piece. And I'm also just making sure that my fingers are nice and clean too, so that I don't get clay all over the back side or anywhere else that I don't want the clay. So I pressed a little bit in, and as you can see, my found piece that I wanted to embed, this has a shank that I could not cut off in any way. So I'm going to press it inside of the clay, and you can see I have a little bit of a gap, and that is what this video is about. It's about how do you clean up or make attractive something that is too big or too large or won't go all the way in there. And how we're going to do that is by snaking out a bit of the clay to go around the outside edge, and then we're going to put the crystals on top of that. So once you have that into position, you're going to take some more of the clay that you might have handy. If not, then you'll go ahead and make up some more. And I'm just snaking it out into a nice, not too thick this time. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm pulling on it a little bit, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to start to push it down inside of that little crevice that I had that I wanted to fill up. And I'm trying to keep it consistent as best as I can, and I'm pulling on this clay as I wrap it around. See, if you break it, no big deal. Just kind of put it back where it was, squish it down a wee bit, and then just continue to go around until you get to the other end. And once you get to the other end, you're just going to pinch off a little teeny bit that I had left over, and then you're going to blend that little seam right there. You can also use your toothpick to blend it together too. So once I have my clay in position, I'm going to go ahead and pat it down, and I'm pressing it down into that gapped area. And just trying to make it as nice and even and smooth as I can. This is what it looks from the top side. This is what it looks like from the side. So once I have my clay kind of snaked out and inside of there, you can try different size stones to see which ones that you like the best. Let's see how this one works. So did you see how I did that when I was picking up those crystals? Sometimes they're turned over, so I'm using my beeswax toothpick to flip them over and then pick it up on the front so that pointy part is facing down. Now, this is the part where I have to put on my dorky glasses. Thank goodness I'm in a video. I can no longer see this sort of level of detail, and this dark stone on the dark clay makes it kind of challenging. And then you just keep on going all the way around. Now, I probably could have used a little less clay, but if I was using a larger size chaton, then that would have been really nice inside of there. But these are super, super tiny. So if you can imagine, you could have extra size big buttons that maybe don't fit inside of a bezel, or maybe you have some crystals. I have tons of vintage cabs that I've just collected from garage sales. I don't know about you guys, but once somebody knows that you're like a beater or you like this kind of stuff, they start like giving you bags of junk that they don't want anymore that's broken. I know everybody has that personal stash. And that is what is so great about being a crafter, is that you get to utilize all of that stuff that you would have otherwise somebody probably just would have been done loving with, but you can bring it to life in a fun little piece. And it also gives meaning to pieces that you might want to gift to somebody else. You know, it's like, do you remember that really cool pair of earrings that you loved so much but you couldn't use anymore because you lost the one? Well, I made you a fun little thing. And you'll be the superhero. And then everybody will be bringing you junk and wanting you to make stuff, and the next thing you know, you'll be making a bunch of pieces. Yahoo! So as you see, I'm just pressing them in there, and I'm not pressing them in there too terribly deep at first, because it's really hard once you start getting cattywamped, sticking them down in too hard. It kind of bends the clay on both sides. So you're just pressing them down there nicely, and then I'm going to come back in and press it down a little bit harder, and so I'm totally embedding them down into the clay. You see what I mean? They were kind of a little bit high, and now I'm pressing them down farther inside of the clay. So I'm also being really careful. Well, not really careful, but I'm just noticing that I'm having a little bit of the beeswax come off on the crystals, and that shows up a lot on the darker stones. Not so much on the crystal, but you see a little extra residue right there. Don't worry about that. When it is cured, which would be about 2 hours, it'll be fully cured at 14, but it'll be cured as far as you won't be able to embed anything else inside of it. You could take a wet wipe and then wipe away that excess. Now, if I wanted to, I could have brought that clay all the way down to the base and done 3 rows of these crystals and brought this crystal up a little higher. On these other pieces that I did, I hardly put any crystal clay inside of there, so I have a nice, even, clean edge right there. And I think the clay was maybe even a different color. I can't remember when I did that, but you can see the difference of a lot of clay, which gives it a nice look in itself, and then no clay or very little clay, just filling up that gap. So once your piece is cured, I'd let it sit for at least a couple of hours, because then you won't have any risk of having the crystals pop out. You're going to want to assemble it, and I'm using some Leverback earring wires, and I'll need to create a way in which it to hang properly. So I have one small jump ring and one medium-sized jump ring. You're welcome to use whatever jump rings that you might already have, whether they're small and small, but you will need to have two. And so I just threaded that on, and then I'm using my needle nose pliers to bring that to a close. And then I'm going to thread on my other jump ring on both sides. First that one, and since this is going to be the front, I'm thinking about how my earring pendant is going to go on there, and it's going to go on this way. See how that works? And then I'm going to close that up, and we'll have a beautiful earring using some found pieces that you might have in your own personal stash. So here's some other examples of using pieces that you might have in your stash that are just too big for the bezels, or in some cases too small for the bezels. And this one, I did the same thing that we saw earlier. I snaked out that side and put it in. That looks pretty darn cool. I did it right here in the necklace piece as well. And to reference how to make fun beads using bead caps and crystal clay, like these samples here, you can see another Beadaholique video for that one. Here, the crystal was way too big, way too small, and it was also super high. So I put the crystal clay in the base, I put the crystals all the way around the outside, and then pressed the stone into the center and did a matching ring to create a fun little set.